It surprises me how some people don't understand their own happiness, and only after losing it do they realize what a great significance it had in their lives. Let's listen to this full story about love, betrayal, and cruel karma for it. Greetings, everyone. It never crossed my mind that I would ever seek advice from strangers on the internet. Yet here I am. My wife and I have been together for a decade, but we've been married for 8 years. We met in college and were each other's first and only significant other. I genuinely believe that we had an extraordinary and lovely relationship as a result of that, but it seems that I was the only one with that perception. A while back, my wife started working at a new company. Initially, she struggled to acclimate because she's always been reserved. However, I encouraged her to make friends, and she eventually befriended a group of girls, some of whom were single, divorced, or in relationships, but not married. Initially, I was pleased that she had made friends, but then she began going out for drinks, partying, or engaging in other activities her friends had arranged. I became apprehensive about her altered demeanor and attempted to discuss it with her, but simultaneously, I didn't want to impose any limitations on her. Her behavior began to impact our intimate relationship. My wife wasn't one to initiate physical intimacy, but with her increasing social activities, she either felt too exhausted or wasn't in the mood. Eventually, her company employed a new manager whom my wife and her friends took a liking to. Initially, she casually mentioned him, but it reached a point where she highlighted how he handled certain issues that didn't appear to be work-related. I inquired about her fascination with him. She ignored my concerns and even started asking if I was sorry that I was no longer dating other women, to which I replied that I was not sorry, because she was everything I ever wanted. I swore my loyalty to her. For a moment, I noticed a glimmer of sorrow in her eyes, but she promptly diverted the conversation. She raised the topic of open marriages as a means of adding excitement to our relationship. This caught me off guard since my wife had never exhibited such behavior, nor was she sexually liberal. To be frank, I initially declined and inquired if this had anything to do with the new manager, to which she denied but expressed feeling like she had missed out and didn't want to lose me. This was a safer option. I felt that she was playing with fire, but I reluctantly and foolishly agreed. We established some ground rules, primarily not to engage in sexual activities with another person in our home. For a year, my wife went out on dates, had one-night stands, and eventually ended up in some kind of relationship with that manager, as if I didn't see it coming. On the other hand, I went on a few dates. Although my wife would inquire if I was comfortable with the arrangement, she seldom altered her behavior. Eventually, I felt that the love I had for her, that pure and special innocence of marriage, had dissipated, and it was slowly destroying me from within. I eventually went on a date with a phenomenal woman who had migrated from South Korea. Our conversations flowed effortlessly. She possessed the wit of a lightning-fast whip crack and a smile that could make one forget themselves. This led to more dates, culminating in intimacy. I can honestly say that I had never experienced intimacy like I did with this woman. I was amazed by the generosity and adoration of a woman. I never thought that someone could make me feel so wanted. Initially, my wife found it endearing, but as time passed, she started to doubt my connection with my lover. I reminded her that she had suggested the arrangement and was involved with the manager I was apprehensive about. She fell silent, seemingly wanting to speak up but refraining from doing so. She began arriving home early to surprise me with meals and ensure the house was immaculate. Furthermore, she began visiting me during my work hours to drop off lunch and even initiated intimacy in the bedroom. Although I should have been thrilled by these gestures, I couldn't shake the fact that it was all due to our open marriage, which I had agreed to. I reluctantly gave in to her advances, merely going through the motions. Something changed in me in relation to my wife, and she felt it too. I inquired about her sudden change in behavior, questioning what was the catalyst. She simply replied that she wanted to demonstrate love and care in our relationship. I couldn't help but burst out laughing despite never intending to. I started asking her about her circle of friends, manager, lover, or affairs, but that night she kept silent, going to bed in tears. The following day I returned home to discover her waiting for me. She shared her desire to put an end to our open marriage, claiming that the entire ordeal had been a terrible mistake and that she regretted everything. She wanted our relationship to become the main thing in our lives again. She wanted to return to the way it was before. I urged her to be forthcoming and explain what sparked her sudden change of heart, and oddly enough I couldn't help but chuckle. It was actually her circle of friends who initially introduced the idea to her. As a result of their many sexual escapades, they suggested that my wife embrace a more liberated lifestyle. And to my surprise, when her manager entered the picture, he too supported this way of life and encouraged my wife to explore her newfound freedom. It appears that their relationship evolved into an emotional affair, although it only became physical once we opened up our marriage. Although it was an exhilarating and intoxicating experience, the consequences of their decision eventually became too much for her to handle. She didn't realize that she never needed a comparison, and that what we had, our marriage, our love, was really one of a kind and special. She feels like she has destroyed our marriage and any hope for a future together. In response, I informed her that he may never be able to view her as his wife again. As she broke down in front of me, I held her in silence while she cried herself to sleep on the couch. Since then, she has quit her job, cut off contact with her friends and manager, and even expressed a willingness to work hard to earn my trust and be a better wife. But I have not broken ties with my mistress, who makes me feel strong and courageous, which my wife has not been able to give me for a long time. I am unsure how to proceed in this complicated situation. I'm hoping to rekindle the special connection I once had with my wife. While I was at my lowest, my lover provided me with much-needed support. Any suggestions you have would be greatly appreciated. We have our first marriage counseling session in a couple of hours, and I'm uncertain about how it will go. Our therapist appears experienced and unbiased, and my wife took the opportunity to express her thoughts during our very first session. She confessed that her group of friends made her question if she had missed out on something. My wife's devotion to her first boyfriend, that is, to me, meant for her that she missed out on a certain experience and adventure. Some of the women she looked up to, who were supposedly living amazing lives, are now divorced and unmarried. During our marriage counseling session, our therapist emphasized how this mindset can be harmful to a marriage and lead to differences in mindset. My wife agreed and shared that her friends encouraged her to see where things could go with her new manager, as it was an opportunity for her to explore and discover herself. Despite feeling guilty, she took the chance. My wife felt guilty about her attraction to her new manager, and she claimed that nothing physical happened between them. However, one of her divorced friends suggested an open marriage as a loophole and claimed that some couples come out stronger because of it. Regrettably, my wife convinced me to open up our marriage, and her so-called adventure began. My wife found her attraction to her new manager intoxicating and all-consuming, but it lacked the real substance that we had built over the years. She began to question her reasons for pursuing this adventure and admitted she could see the hurt in my eyes. Despite this, she told herself it was an opportunity to have an amazing experience. But she now realizes the gravity of her actions and regrets ever pursuing this path. It was only when she noticed the change in me that she fully realized what a mistake she had made. Initially, she presumed that my dating would lead me to gradually accept her circumstances and be at ease with them. But everything changed when my mistress began to be more and more present in my life. I began smiling again for no apparent reason. My eyes would light up when I received a text message, or when I happily left the room to take a call. This sudden change made her feel an unsettling sensation in her stomach, causing her to experience multiple panic attacks without any clear trigger. She again turned to her friends for advice, but they simply brushed off her concerns, saying that my reaction was typical during our love adventures. When the same divorced friend who had initially suggested this pointed out how content I appeared with my lover, the harsh reality finally hit her. The realization that another woman, not my wife, brought me happiness was so overwhelming that she almost fainted. It all seemed so absurd, and she pleaded with them to help her regain my love. Her friends simply retorted that if she couldn't handle the situation, why did she agree to open our marriage in the first place? It was then that she realized that these individuals were toxic and posed a threat to our marriage and the life we had built together. Since then, she has been determined to win me back through any means necessary. Meanwhile, during my counseling session, I briefly mentioned my ongoing relationship with my lover. The counselor advised that no resolution could be achieved while my lover remained in the picture, and recommended that we schedule another appointment. Following our next session, the counselor remarked that it was uncommon for someone to remain with their first partner for such a prolonged period, and conveyed the impression that any obstacle could be overcome. I have a strong suspicion that she desires for us to become one of her success stories. Update. I have now relocated to an apartment owned by my brother, which I obtained at an incredibly low price. Although my wife owns properties and offered to let me stay for free, I declined her offer. Dirty details about my wife's behavior surfaced, including disturbing details about her manager. During our second counseling session, I inquired about some of the questions. One of the questions was whether anything physical had occurred before we opened our marriage. She averted her gaze towards the ground and pleaded with me not to make her answer. Initially, she expressed reluctance to reveal the truth, fearing that it would spell the end of our relationship. But after some prodding, she disclosed that nothing physical had occurred between her and her manager, but they engaged in mutual masturbation in each other's presence. This despicable individual had convinced her that since it wasn't technically physical, it didn't constitute cheating, and that they were merely admiring each other's bodies. I was completely taken aback by this revelation, and she began trembling and hyperventilating. Tears streamed down her face as snot dripped from her nostrils, and she apologized profusely. The consultant opened her mouth in surprise. An expression of disbelief froze on her face. My wife then fell to her knees, clutching my legs and begging for forgiveness. I inquired about what had caused her to alter her opinion of her manager. She explained that after she began distancing herself from the group, his attitude towards her underwent a significant shift. On one occasion, as she was departing from a meeting, she overheard her manager conversing with another male colleague in his office. To her shock, he remarked that he was surprised at how effortlessly he had seduced her, and that she was a prime example of why one couldn't trust the reserved ones. When the colleague inquired whether he was genuinely attracted to her, he replied that she was merely a pleasant distraction, and that he had no intention of ending his engagement. He even disclosed that he was merely pursuing her to get it out of his system since his fiancée was the only woman who had ever truly understood him. He made it clear that he had no intention of ending his engagement, and he even expressed pity towards me. My wife was merely a fleeting pleasure to him, and upon realizing that she was nothing more than a sexual object to him, she was overcome with despair. The realization that she had betrayed me for the sake of cheap thrills made her feel dirty, and she left her workplace to vomit in the parking lot. Her initial thoughts were of regret and remorse, and she begged for my forgiveness. I then asked her if she loved him and when she had stopped loving me. Through tears, she looked me straight in the eye and stated that she had never stopped loving me. She came to the realization that what she thought was love was actually something else entirely, which made things worse. She admitted to me that she made a mistake and missed our connection before everything happened. In an attempt to fix things, she proposed that we move away and start over, just the two of us, like it was meant to be. Surprisingly, she had a strong grip on my arm as she spoke. I explained to her that I couldn't leave my mistress for her. It wouldn't be fair. She didn't take it well and had a bit of a breakdown, sobbing uncontrollably and saying things that didn't make sense. She clung to me as if I were going to vanish into thin air. The counselor and I had to work together to help her calm down, which took some time. The counselor was able to persuade her that taking some time apart could potentially help us both heal. Unfortunately, the story doesn't end there. As soon as we arrived home, I began packing my things. While doing so, my wife received a video call from a former friend who was in tears. It turned out that after my wife resigned, the friend began a fling with the manager. However, things took a turn for the worse when the friend had a pregnancy scare and the manager's behavior drastically changed. To make matters even more complicated, the friend had a boyfriend whom she saw a future with, and the fling was merely out of curiosity. How funny. It seemed they were all making the same mistakes. The friend's boyfriend found out about the potential pregnancy because he stumbled upon an email exchange between her and the manager. The manager, however, accused her of trying to trap him with a baby. This caused the friend to lose her boyfriend, and she reached out to my wife for advice, believing that my wife had saved our marriage. I left the room and have been staying in the apartment ever since. In light of my wife's erratic behavior and how it has affected our relationship, I have decided that it's best for me to move out. Update 2. A lot has transpired since then. The friend who had the pregnancy scare was in fact pregnant, but lost the baby due to the stress of losing her boyfriend and being publicly humiliated by the affair. She went ballistic and exposed the manager to upper management and his fiancé. On a whim, I searched for his fiancé on Facebook and was curious to learn more about her. The woman I found on Facebook turned out to be a typical small-town girl. Her profile indicated that she was a special needs teacher who enjoyed spending time at home and valued family. I couldn't help but wonder why someone like the manager would engage in extramarital affairs when he had such a wonderful partner at home. It's truly a mystery why men like him end up with women like her. The former friend reached out to me, seeking my perspective on the situation as she was gathering evidence against the manager. She wanted to discuss it in person, and since we had both already undergone a KOVA test, I agreed to meet her. As soon as I saw her, I could tell she was shattered. The dark circles under her eyes and the redness in her irises indicated that she was tormented by her own thoughts and had not slept well. She expressed her gratitude for my willingness to meet with her and immediately apologized for her involvement in my wife's affair. As it turned out, she had spoken with my wife again. It was from my wife that she found out that I moved out from her and we don't live together anymore. She didn't attempt to deflect blame and wanted to take responsibility, which is why she had requested to meet in person. I expressed my appreciation for her efforts, but questioned why she would go to such lengths. She explained that losing both her child and the love of her life had fundamentally changed her. She felt disgusted with herself and had difficulty sleeping as all she could see was her ex's face on the day he found out. It was clear that she was struggling to come to terms with the situation. It was clear that the wife's friend was deeply disgusted with herself, and this meeting could be a way for her to punish herself. She confided that the manager had engaged in conduct that caused discord among coworkers, which was a breach of conduct, and more. As a result, he was likely to lose his job and possibly be blacklisted from the entire field. She was aware that the same could happen to her, and she was prepared to accept the consequences. After gathering my side of the story, the former friend apologized again and left. I needed to retrieve a few things from our old place, so I chose a time when I believed my wife would not be present. To my surprise, she was there. What was even more unexpected was that she had placed most of our wedding photos and other pictures on the coffee table, and she was gazing at them intently. She said she hoped that if she revealed the secret, it would help us to be together again. Although I appreciated her bravery, I made it clear that it wouldn't change anything between us. I also mentioned that I would no longer attend marriage counseling and would instead opt for individual counseling. She became emotional and cried quietly, but she said she comprehended my decision. Even though I should feel either relief or anger for the delay in taking action. I don't know how to feel. I'm experiencing a sense of numbness towards her, which is unusual. Therefore, I've decided to address this issue in individual counseling rather than marriage counseling. Additionally, my brother recommended that I consult with a divorce lawyer as a precautionary measure. At this point, I'm not inclined to fight for our marriage, and it appears that my wife can sense this. When I declined her attempt to initiate intimacy, she became angry and shouted, "What does my lover do for me that she can't? What does her love give me that she can't?" She spoke so loudly that I'm certain the neighbors could hear her. She offered to do whatever it was that I wanted, but I simply shook my head. I explained that if she couldn't comprehend the situation even after everything that had occurred, then it was evident where our marriage was headed. With that, I left her to her thoughts. Update 3. Hello, friends. It's been a long time since my divorce from my ex-wife. The divorce was quick. My lawyer is a great guy and made sure I didn't lose anything from the situation. I'm married now. Yeah, that's the Korean mistress. And now I can say that I'm very grateful for those dark times in my life. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't have found true happiness in my current marriage. I'm sure that in my new life, there won't be the shit I went through. And if you end up like me, don't even think about it and get a divorce right away.